Believe it or not, but investing in Metro Detroit is not all sunshine and rainbows. Let's get into it. Hey guys, how you doing? Derek here from M1 Realty. I'm the broker owner, founder of the company. Started M1 in 2014. I was just me and a laptop on the third floor of an office building here in Ferndale, Michigan. Fast forward to today, 10 years later, we've got a storefront right at the corner of 9 and Woodward. Got the biggest, baddest, awesomest real estate team in the city of Ferndale. Got an all-star team, guys. They are here whether you're looking to buy, sell, invest, rent, whatever you need. We've got you covered. We even do property management now. So if you've been watching this channel for a while, or even if you're new to it, you'll know that I'm pretty much an unrelenting positive voice for Metro Detroit, reasons why it's a fantastic place to invest, and I'm always extolling the virtues of our fair city. So let's switch gears here today and kind of talk a little bit about some of the things that you have to be aware of before you start investing here, because there are some extra precautions and practices that you probably should take, that you maybe don't have to do in other metro areas. So let's get into that so you can be well informed about what it's really going to take if you decide to invest here in the Detroit area. And so by and large, this video, I've got so many people that are looking to invest in the city of Detroit as opposed to the suburbs. So this video is going to more focus on the city itself, although that's not to say that these practices don't apply everywhere, because these are, things that you can do to protect your investment no matter where you're at. They're all a good idea. It's just that, some parts of the actual city of Detroit are, they're a little bit more important that you think about these items. So number one is that in the city of Detroit, houses are just harder to show. So even acquiring those properties is going to be a little bit more difficult. The reason being, so there's a couple different reasons for that. Number one, you're always kind of, as a listing agent, you're always kind of aware of, the threat of vandalism, break-in, things like that. So, it's good practice as an agent to kind of like obscure where the lockbox is. Sometimes we'll put it in the back of the house or behind the garage, or, I've even had properties that I've shown in Detroit where I actually literally had to go to the listing office, find a place to park, go into the listing office, get the key from them, show the house, take the key back. So obviously that's several more steps than it takes to show pretty much any other house in America in this day and age. But I understand why they do that, and I don't disagree with it, but just so you know, it's not quite as easy as, hey, I want to see that house, let's go meet there in 20 minutes and go get inside and take a look. A lot of times we don't have the ability to do that in the city. Another thing to be aware of is, so many of these homes that are listed are tenant occupied, and not all of those tenants are even aware that the house is for sale. So sometimes, any tenant occupied house by state law, they've got tenants' rights, meaning that if we want to show that house, we have to give them 24 hours notice, and that's if the tenant's agreeable to it. So there are situations where we've had to literally back out of deals because the tenant wouldn't even allow us in the house to do an inspection, much less an appraisal, much less close on it. So there's that. And even in situations where the tenant is willing to work with you, I don't know the percentage of houses, but a lot of the ones that I write on for my clients are tenant occupied, and we're not even allowed to see the house until there's an accepted offer. So it's completely backwards when we do that. So what I do in that instance is we'll write the offer and we'll put in the additional conditions. You can do it as an addendum, but we just write it right into the purchase agreement that our inspection contingency and all of our contingencies don't begin until we've had the ability to actually get in and see the house. So, that could be, we have to be on the tenant schedule in that instance. So it's not a matter of, I got it under contract today, let's go check it out tomorrow now. Maybe that tenant's not letting us in for 4 days. So we don't want to burn up 4 days of your inspection period. So we make that start once we actually get into the house, take a look at it, and approve of the interior condition of that property. So, like I said, just acquiring the property has there's a little bit more to it than there is, most other places. And then another, I don't want to call it a problem, but just a reality of working in the city is, in the city of Detroit, people don't believe it till they see it. neighborhood can change literally from block to block. Like we see that all the time. And a lot of times I've got a lot of out-of-state investors that I work with that will just like give me an address. And before we even write on the property, I always do a drive-by and send them a video of just the actual block, because we could go down one block and it's manicured lawns and all brick houses and they're beautiful and all the cars are, late model cars. Everybody's really taking care of their property. You literally go over a cross street and we could have now they're all frame houses. A couple of them are boarded. Maybe we got one burned out down the street, garbage in the streets. Like it's literally from block to block, that can happen. It's not uncommon in the city. So we just want to make sure that I'm not going to waste my client's time even writing on a house where we don't think that's going to be a wise investment. Deferred maintenance is definitely an issue as well. I mean, let's face it, the reason why a lot of people come and invest their money in the Metro Detroit area is because the price point is lower than it is in many other cities around the country. So, part of the reason that goes into that is, we all know that, Detroit has gone through some battles, and it's definitely on the rebound and coming back strong. But there have been, years and years, decades of issues. So some of these houses they have 20 years of deferred maintenance. So, that's not to say that everything's fixable, but it's a question of how much do you want to get into when you haven't done any kind of maintenance whatsoever on a house for 20 years. It's going to be a big job. It's like one of those things. It's like preventative maintenance. So you go to the doctor for your annual checkup, identify identify issues early on. You can take care of them, but if you don't go until you're on death's door and you go into the emergency room, it might be too late to save you. Kind of the same there. If you're doing a little bit of maintenance here and there, a couple projects a year on your home, it's easier to just keep it in a well-maintained state. And we're not seeing that in some of these properties. And that's kind of the calculation that goes into it after we've identified the interior condition of the home. We start putting a list together. How much is it going to cost to do these repairs that need to be done? Because most of my I'm going to back up and say all of my clients that I'm working with in the city of Detroit are responsible landlords, and they want to make sure that they're giving their tenants a well-maintained home to live in where they may not have had that before. But that's just one of the things that we have to look at is so there's this, and we get this whole checklist of things that we want done. Like what's the most important thing? What has to be done now? What can wait till next year? Stuff like that. So just getting the property into a good condition is the expensive part, and then after that, just maintaining it every year is just your usual maintenance. That doesn't really add up that much. It's just the cost of doing business on a rental property from year to year. Like every rental property on the planet has things like that you're going to want to keep an eye on. And then there's the city of Detroit itself. So the city, I don't think, is going to win too many awards for being just an awesome place that's willing to work with homeowners, and they're every city has varying degrees of this, but some cities are less adversarial than others. Detroit's not one of the ones that's less adversarial. So it varies by department. The building department's getting better. They're somewhat easier to work with than they used to be, as long as you know what their expectations are. You definitely want to get a rental license for all your properties. I mean, that goes without saying. Now, the water department, on the other hand, I've had a 21-year ongoing battle trying to, find people in the water department that I can work with to get water bills done in a timely manner. Like some of these final bills, they make you jump through a million hoops to get them. It's a problem. And back in my days when I was mostly listing foreclosed properties in Detroit, it wasn't one of mine, but my broker at the time had a house where the water was on at the street. The meter, actually the pipe was broken off on the other side of the meter. So the city just didn't make it a priority to go shut the water off at the street, because they knew they were going to be able to charge whatever that water bill was, and it ended up being over $10,000. Yeah, I mean, there was a swimming pool in the basement, and they just wouldn't shut it off because they knew they were going to get paid for it. So there's that. That's an extreme example, but just getting a final water bill is way more difficult than it needs to be in the city. And then finally, like once you identify the property, acquire it, get it under contract, close on it, and now it's yours. I'm not going to lie, it's more difficult to find contractors and handymen to work on the house. Some of my normal contractors that I work with, on a weekly basis here, they just won't go in the city because they've had bad experiences there. They've had tools stolen, whatever other incidents. So, and my experience is not unique. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard to find the people that you want to work with just won't go to the city for whatever reason. And then the people that will go to the city, you have to be really careful because some of them are not the most reputable. And I don't want to scare you guys because I've had pretty good experience lately with finding good people to do good work, like good quality work. So, but I just want to, I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. I want to give you guys an unvarnished view of what you can expect, and that's part of it. I mean, it's depending on what neighborhood you go in, and you're talking about an economically depressed city, there's going to be a higher incidence of vandalism, of theft. So, what can you do to combat that? Number one, first thing that you want to do if you buy a house in the city and there's nobody living in it, you're going to move in a house sitter. And house sitter is just a euphemism for armed guard that's in there 24 hours a day making sure nothing gets stolen. But that's literally what you're going to do. You're going to get somebody in there to just take care of the house, make sure that somebody's in there, make sure that people driving by can see that somebody's in there, and then it's not going to be a likely target for break-ins or anything like that. Installing a security system is a definite plus. I would do that before you even. The first things you want to do when you take over a house, get the power on, get Wi-Fi in there, and then get a security system, even if it's just a ring system. That way, before you get the house sitter, or maybe the house sitter has to go to the store or something like that, you've got 24-hour security on that house. It's a ring system doesn't cost. You can go to Costco and get one for $250, and it's well worth it. There's also a security system. It's pretty sweet. It's called DAWGS, DAWGS, and it's basically I have yet to see anybody be able to break into one. I'm sure it's happened, but I've actually got one going in right down the street here in Hazel Park on a bank-owned listing that I'm about to put on the market. And I'm excited for it because I know I don't have to worry about any issues with that house in particular. And then the final thing, if you're doing a full rehab on a house, this is just this is normal practice in the city. As a buyer's agent, I expect this, and I appreciate it from the listing agent, from the sellers that do this. But the last thing you want to put in when you're rehabbing that house is the plumbing and the HVAC system. Reason being, copper is expensive. Most of the plumbing that goes in nowadays is PEX, but that furnace is a big piece of metal. You can scrap that, and it's relatively easy to take out. Hot water heater, same way. Central air would literally we usually have those go in after the house even closes. It's in the agreement that one's going to be put in. So. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of copper in the condenser unit of a central air unit, so copper is expensive. Same deal. You don't see too many central air units in the actual city of Detroit. I've been seeing more and more lately, but a lot of times you just don't have them because they're just such easy targets for theft. But that's the only things that I can think of. I mean, I'm not by any means saying don't come and invest here because I think the good outweighs the bad. There's just the reality of the situation is there's a few extra hoops to jump through and a few other precautions that you want to take just to protect your investment. I think it's pretty reasonable, and that's part. It goes hand in hand with the lower price point. I mean, you're also going to get lower rent, but when you're paying a lot less money for that house, if you can get a move-in ready brick 3-bedroom home for $55,000. Show me another city where you can do that. They don't exist. So, I'm certainly not saying don't do it because I've got a good track record of getting those, identifying the right home to purchase and getting them closed for my clients. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've sold more houses in the city of Detroit than any other city around by far. I've closed over 250 homes in the city of Detroit in my career. and I think we're closing in on 2,000 total sales now at this point. So 10% of my sales, if you've seen a map of the Metro Detroit area, it's massive. There's like 60 or 70 suburbs. I mean, there's tons of cities around here. So I've closed a whole lot of homes in Detroit, and I've had a whole lot of success for my investor clients. And I do have clients right now who are buying the exact property that I just talked about, using the precautions that we're talking about and the methods that we're talking about, and making a lot of money. So it can totally be done. Not saying don't do it, but I just want you to know there's a little more to it than you might think right off the bat. So that's why I made this video. So hopefully this is helpful. If you have any other questions, guys, just reach out anytime. My direct line is 586-491-5622. You can also reach me at 248-561-6155. Shoot me an email, dwerenka@m1realty.net. And, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it, I'm on it. So shoot me a DM, I'll respond quick. And thanks again for watching these, guys. I really appreciate it. We'll have more informative videos for you next week. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Have a great one, and we'll talk soon.